Well, I would say that we have a very strong future ahead of us. We need the help of our next generation, though. So the way we are driven for the future is going to depend on how we bring in this next generation. We need to excite them. We need to show them the way. We can't hold on to our egos and everything that we know like this. We have to relinquish a little bit of that knowledge. We have to build those mentorship programs. We have to cultivate them. We have to cultivate that interest once again. So as long as we have the strength in our workplaces and that passion and that, how it kind of worked for me, gets in your blood. If we can continue to make that a reality, I think we're going to be looking in pretty good shape. Again, we have gone through recessions. Railroads are still here. How many other industries can you look at that says we've been around for 100 years or more? Not many. We're not going away anytime soon. The only thing that we are going to do is get stronger, and some of us might get bigger. There's going to be more opportunities as we start looking at the different liquefied gas and petroleum gas and all that good stuff. There's plenty of room for opportunity, especially with technology, as automation starts to become a situation for some companies. There's just so much room for growth. And that growth is exactly what we need to be sharing with that next generation. It's exactly what we need to be communicating to that audience. And as long as we can continue to inspire and get those people excited about our industry, which again, we're not doing a great job at right now, but if we can do that next 10, 20 years, we're not going to have any problem whatsoever. In fact, I think we will once again come back as a king employer, and we will have a rail renaissance. And I think that's kind of what we're on the cusp of right now.
You may know the American Railway Engineering and Maintenance of Way Association, or AREMA, as the, quote, keepers of the manuals. You may know them as the, quote, people behind the largest annual railroad conference in North America. Heck, you may not know about AREMA at all. This podcast is designed, no pun intended, to change your view of who AREMA is and how AREMA has changed the trajectory of many railway careers over its 100-plus year history. Welcome to Platform Chats with your host, Walt Blesser, where he takes a moment to discuss the impacts AREMA has had on the very people who are proud to be called members. Are you ready to roll with AREMA?
ARE Corporation is a proud supporter of AREMA and Platform Chats. If you are looking to take your railway structures career to the next level, or simply start it down the right track, please visit us at arecorp.com. Please see our brand new job postings on our careers page or on our LinkedIn page.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the latest episode of Platform Chats. We are in season 2, episode 5, I believe. We are doing our best to make this monthly, if not a little quicker. This would have been recorded about a week or so ago, but unfortunately yours truly finally picked up something off the playground that his child brought home. Let's just be very clear. I was not on the playground, but my little guy was, and he brought something home to Dad, and it has sat with me for a good 8 days, and I can still feel it in my chest, and I can hear it in my voice, so I apologize. But the good news is I have a guest today that's going to handle all the talking. She comes to me with a reputation of not being light on words, and that is exactly what we need. It's what our listeners need, and I'm super excited to talk to her. We're really going to take a bit of a little side road here. Last time we talked, it was about the Hay Award, and we've done some very AREMA-focused podcasts, but the goal of today's podcast is to listen and hear from not only a second-generation railroader, but someone that's working right now in the middle of what I consider the most wild job market that we have seen in quite some time. We've heard things like the Great Resignation. We have seen coronavirus. We've seen changes in the way people work, the way people office, and it's affecting the railroad industry no different than anything else. As an employer myself, I'm having trouble finding and retaining individuals. And our guest today specializes in both of those, but she's got a great lens to look through from a railroad perspective. So with that, I would like to introduce Michele Malski. She is the founder and president of Spring Recruits. And like any good railroading term, Spring is an acronym. I will let her explain where that came from. But she has started in the railroad industry. She is a second generation railroader. She's got quite an interesting and colorful background. And so from there, Michele, I'm going to hand it off to you. Tell us all about yourself, and please do end with how you started Spring.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Walt, and hello, REMA listeners. We really appreciate the opportunity to get in front of you today and share a little bit about our story. So thank you for this opportunity. So first, hey everybody, I'm Michele. I'm the founder and president of Spring, but I didn't start out there. So let's kind of wind it back a little bit, and I'll share a little bit about how I got in the industry. So back in the day, my father was a rail fan, I guess you could say, and he grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and he saw the influx of trains, freights, passenger, all in that area. 10 trains a day from Scranton to New York City, and just really fell in love with the industry. He got himself involved, became an attorney, started his own authority, and they hire a group called the Delaware-Lackawanna, that's their carrier, that is operating and services their industries. So when I was a young pup, I went out on several field trips with my father, and I'd be in the back seat. He'd crack the window open just a little bit, leave me a bowl of water in the back, and so I'd listen and I'd hear and I'd observe, and we'd go to places like new bridge constructions or a new customer site, and the way that he would change his tone and the way that he would be able to communicate with all these different groups was really fascinating. And I said that really takes a mastery of the language and of communication to be able to communicate with all these different groups. But of course, not everything comes smoothly. So there's always obstacles and things to overcome. And when I saw him come over some of these and overcome some of these, issues, whether it was a washout or something like that, it really just started to get me more excited about the industry because every day was different. And I don't know about you, but I'm one of those people that I need to have either my hand in every pie or I need to be doing something. I'm just one of those people. And so when I started to see that and how he talked to different groups and how he was tackling these different problems, he really inspired me to get involved in the industry. And, I always thought, I'd kind of follow in his footsteps and just do it bigger and better. But of course, that's all next generation's goals to outdo whoever was first, right? But really, I just wanted to make him proud, right? And I'm sure I am, and that's fine. And we're like best friends, so that's another key component of that too. But so one of the things that I really loved about the industry was that there weren't that many women. I didn't see many people that looked like me in the industry. And my father always said, this is a great opportunity for you. You're kind of a shark. You go for what you want. Even as a young kid, I was the loudest kid in kindergarten, always outspoken. And he said, this could be a really good spot for you. And so I started to really consider that more and more. And so knowing I wanted to come into the railroad industry, I tried to carve my path that way, in that direction, similar to what he did as well. And so I graduated from Cornell University with a degree in industrial and labor relations with a minor in law and society. Again, kind of going on that pre-law track. And every summer that I had, I was working with a different railroad company. The first one was Norfolk Southern. I did an internship with them for 6 months. The next summer I was with Amtrak with their government relations team down in DC. And I also did a winter over in Berlin, Germany, where I was working with Bombardier Transportation. So, I kind of really focused my energies that way, in that direction. And there's going to be a couple lessons that I come back to there, so just remind me to come back to that. So, knowing that I wanted to have all that experience right out of the gate coming out of school, I would start applying to different jobs in the railroad industry. And, I think all of us coming out of college kind of think we are the best at our game. And I think that's something that, you have to learn pretty quickly. And it was either from my dad or from one of the interviews I applied for and had an interview with, that they said, so what's your experience? I said, well, I did all these internships. Little fun fact, internships are not real work experience. So, all of us that are coming out of college, just one tip of advice, eat a little bit of humble pie before you come out, right? And I know that's hard because, you're graduating, you're at the top of your game, you're excited, you're poised, you're ready to go. Believe me, I was the same way. So this is coming from the heart, it's coming from experience when I say that. But it is really good to get a couple years experience. Get that 1 year of a yard master, get that 1 year of a conductor, get that 1 year of an accountant, whatever it may be. If you're serious about this industry, or even a relative industry, whether it's trucking, logistics, transloading, doesn't matter. Carve it in a way that you at least get that first year in. That's very important, because having that then is your next building block for your next building block for your next building block. Internships are great, and it shows employers that, hey, I'm serious about this path. But on the same hand, it's not real life experience. So there's your first slap in the face. And I say that with a humorous touch, and of course from the heart, right? But you got to kind of set that expectation for yourself, okay? And it's only going to gain you credibility when you start from the ground up, when you actually understand how a railroad works, when you actually understand how to replace a knuckle, when you've been out with the tracking maybe over a summer, maybe you're only out there for a week to learn. Whatever the case may be, you're still seeing it firsthand. You're seeing it, how a railroad is actually run. So, that's tip number one. So now going on this pathway here, kind of going through my resume, after I graduated from Cornell, I went to BNSF as a management trainee. There I became a train master over on the Montana division. This was during the Bakken boom. So spent some time in Minot, North Dakota at that time. And from there, transitioned over to Canadian Pacific as a division train master, where I had a much larger territory, and it was kind of cool because I got to interchange with my dad's railroad. So started to get a little bit of that experience with the short lines and other players in the game. So that was a really fun time, especially during like Thanksgiving or whatever. And my interchange cards weren't taken yet. I'm like, you ain't getting this butter unless you give me those interchange cards. So we always had a nice little, back and forth about that and about work. So, that was really a key to our relationship as well. But again, I got started just really from the inspiration and the encouragement that my father gave me. And that's something that still resonates with me and with Spring, is if you are a newcomer to this industry, you just want to get involved, want to see more about it, talk to people that have that experience, talk to people that maybe are in your area, and we can guide those conversations. And I think this is a good part, and I'll come back to my resume in a second. So I hope y'all are following. I'm going to take you on this journey. We're going to go to different pockets, and we're going to come back and circle back and get back on.
And I do want to hit you right there. When you graduated Cornell in a pre-law track, what made you not go to law school? Not to completely derail this story, but what did keep you from going to law school and going to sunny Minot, North Dakota with BNSF?
Hey, why not Minot? We'll get there, Walt. We're not there quite yet.
Okay,
so
all right.
We'll get there. But what I wanted to just come back here to is this is a great opportunity to talk about associations as well. So, when you are a young pup and wanting to learn, start looking at some of your industry, even if it's not the rail industry. Again, maybe it's transloading, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's rail shippers. There are plenty of different associations that you can get a part of. And I want to talk about that probably a little bit more towards the end. But okay, let's continue back to my path here. So one of the great things about being at CP, of course, I was back on the East Coast. That's where I'm originally from. And then, from there, did actually get into law school and decided to go to law school for a little while. But then the thing is once you start in the rail industry, you get this bug. You get it in your blood, and then you miss it. You miss the paychecks, you miss the people, you miss the camaraderie, you really miss the industry. And so being away from my industry, not getting that experience, remember how important that experience is that I told you from the beginning. At a young age, you want to get as much experience as you can under your belt. And so I left law school to come back and get some more experience. And on this time, I worked with Bombardier here in the U.S. And so I was an operations manager for the MARC train system here from Baltimore to Washington. From that, was only there for a short time until I then discovered some opportunities with the American Short Line and Regional Railway Association, the ASLRA, and they were partnering with the FRA to build what is known now as the Short Line Safety Institute. So I was the manager of safety programming and hazmat programming for the Short Line Safety Institute. And that was an awesome opportunity, again, getting to see all the different short lines in the U.S., getting to work with different players that, really needed some resources or just a refresher of either, what is safety culture, what makes that, but also, how do we enhance what you're doing for hazmat training? Hazmat training can be quite a colossal topic to handle by yourself. especially when you are a mom and pop railroad. So this was a great resource, a free resource that anybody could take advantage of and really amp up their educational value. So working with those experts and working with that team was a great opportunity, and always will be grateful for that. And any employers that are listening out there today, I would definitely reach out to them. And again, it's a free service, so why not? So from SLSI, what I kept hearing again and again and again, whether you're working for a class one or whether you're working at a short line, is we can't find people. I don't know where they are. Where the heck are all the people? Well, this is where you find this need, and then I came up with the solution. So, what we really focus on at Spring is recruiting and retention. And, we won't get too deep down into our services and things like that. But just know at the end of the day that our mission is to bridge the gap between seekers and employers. And we want to get the next generation excited about our jobs and our careers nationwide. And I encourage all of you, if you are an employer listening today, do the same thing. You might think that we're competitors, but really we're all here to help each other, and we're all in this together. And we can't go to every tech school, high school, college, community college. So, help us out. The more our community, the more the external world knows about us and what we do, the easier it is for me to sell that opportunity to our audiences. So let's see, where should we go from here, Walt?
Well, I spoke with Erica Brunke, and I will tell you, she was right. You're not short on words, and I think that's fantastic. You are just definitely going to make sure that I unpack a lot that was just said. So congratulations on potentially our longest intro as a podcast guest. I will ship you a little trophy for that. No, you said there was just so much in there that I was trying to grab onto, because I could have taken a number of things you said and just gone down a rabbit hole. But I am going to start right here with what you're currently doing in recruitment. And you said something specifically about you're bridging the gap between the employees and the employers, right? So in our industry, that's going to be our folks that are out there job seeking. And then for the purposes of this call, let's just say class one railroad, short line railroad owners, and then AE firms, consultants, et cetera, like that, or suppliers. How big is that gap? And do you believe that gap has changed since, let's just say, the 70s, the 60s, and the view of railroads in this world? And then now it's 2022, and BNSF, Union Pacific, et cetera, are competing against, Facebook and Meta and Tesla and all these sexy new techs. Do you feel that gap has gotten larger, and how do you address that?
I love that you asked this, but we're going to go over time, I'm sure. There might be a part 2 to this. All right, so let's get started here. Let's go back a little history lesson. So back in the 70s, 80s, railroading was king. There were plenty of more railroad short lines all over the U.S. Even prior to that, there were thousands. I don't know if I'll go thousands, but there were way more short lines or way more railroad companies in our world. Pre the automobile, things like that. Through bankruptcies, new technologies, things changed. The smallers got eaten. The strong ones stayed around. And now, even now we're looking probably around this number contains transit, commuter, and freight, just a little over 700 short line and railroads that are classified with the FRA. So, there were plenty of us. And the thing was, we used to be the king, and we got used to sitting in that throne of people will always want to come work for us because our benefits are so great. We pay people so well. Well, just as it happened in the past, we are resilient, which is a great key to have as any industry. But we are now competing not only against ourselves, but with all of the other modes of transportation, with all of the techs, with all of the other remote work that you can do. So there is a lot of changes going on that, I think some of us as employers need to wake up and say, listen, we are no longer competing against me and the short line next door. We are competing with the Googles, the Walmarts, the JB Hunts, everybody. We are competing with everybody, and everybody's in the same situation. And now that's pre-COVID. Now after COVID, when everybody really had a problem with not necessarily getting people to come to work during that time, but because we're essential workers in the rail industry. But post that, we laid off a little too deep, and then so coming out of that resurrection, trying to get people to come back from that has been a challenge for a lot of folks. I'm going to say a majority of folks. But that being said, it's interesting to see the different departments. I'm going to kind of go down a rabbit hole on this one for a second. One of the departments that I have not really seen much of a change was those that had capital projects planned. So maintenance away folks really were still going to work. They're still working outside. They're still doing a lot of the money that was already spent for that year. So those projects and that group had really kind of seen the lesser of the hit. But now, as we're kind of, again, coming out, and there's a lot of federal funding, there's a lot of CRISI grants out there, there's a lot of opportunity for growth, infrastructure-wise, we're seeing a big push for the MOW department, the mechanical department, really anything structural. And it's a great thing to see. But again, people have realized, especially the candidates that had continued to work during COVID, how valuable they are. And they are. We're all valuable as employees at wherever we work. But that, as from a hiring employer or recruiter, what you're seeing is demands are a lot higher. Demands are a lot different than they were pre-COVID. So sometimes we as the employer have to get a little bit more creative now of how we're going to attract that talent to our company. And I will tell you, this is the two education pieces I have for our employers is we have two things we have to reflect on. The first one is internally, and the second one is externally. So as an employer, and this really goes for associations as well, but as an employer, we really have to do a better job at rebranding ourselves. We are no longer the king. We are no longer sitting on that throne of we can get anybody we want to come to my workplace because we own this. Well, there's a lot of other employers out there that are offering higher wages than you, remote work. So there's a little bit of a rebranding issue that we really have to talk about. So internally, we have to think about what are we projecting outward, right? What is our vision? What's our mission? Who are we helping in our community? What this generation wants is way different than what people from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 80s wanted, right? That were able to work during those times. So what we need to then now do is adjust. We have to adjust with the times, and we're good at this, but we're slow to do this. And so one of the things I ask you to do is really reflect. Reflect on what your brand looks like. If you're a short line, I want your logo to be as recognizable in your local community as that red Target sign. And that's the goal that you need to shoot for. Even with spring, when we go to different community colleges, when we go to veteran bases, if someone calls me and says, I was thinking about this, that's a success for me because they thought about it twice. They thought about it when I had a conversation with them about the jobs in this area or wherever they were looking. And then they called me back to say, hey, can you tell me more? So they thought about it twice. That's where we need to be. We need to be that second thought. We need to have more of that draw in, right? So a lot of this has to do with branding. But the second part of this is also on the internal side is we have to be ready for that. We have to be ready to take in new candidates. And these new candidates, I'm telling you, they probably won't have rail experience. And that's okay if you're looking for someone with that, but just know that that's going to narrow down your field. If you stay open-minded, and again, think about that rebrand, if you can think open-mindedly and say, I can look at any different career path, whether you're coming from business school, whether you're coming from Cornell, whether you're coming from a tech school, whether you're coming straight out of the military, I can train you up and get you into whatever position I have here. Because I'll tell you, the most important thing is aptitude, is having that attitude to want to work. We can teach railroad skills any day. We've been in the rail industry, we know it, we love it, and we can train anybody in it. It's really that attitude that we want to make our culture different and to make sure that they want to come and work for us. But again, wanting them to come work for us. Now, I stole this from the sales side, but of course, here's what it boils down to. Candidates are not going to come to your company unless they know, like, and trust you. I wish we could have like little letters that popped up here, but KLT, right? This is your basic sales principle. People, if they don't know you, They're not going to come and talk to you. So just the conversation right out of the gate is gone. If they don't like you, why would they spend the rest of their life with you if you want them to be a lifer, right? And they're not going to trust you with their time, their family, or anything else if they don't do the other two. So people have got to know you exist. Again, that brand, they need to know your brand. That's the first step. Get your brand out there. Be consistent. Go to different local high schools. Go to the community colleges. Go every year you've got to go. And it's not a one and done. Michelle, I went to this one community college event and I didn't get anybody. Okay, that's good. I'm proud of you. Way to go. But you got to go now every year. You got to make that commitment to build your pipeline. They still don't know you. And guess what? All those people just graduated. So you need to start to get to know the staff. You need to start to get to know the recruiting services of these different colleges. So be an entity that people know. Once they know that you exist, then they can start to like you. You can start telling them about your benefits. You can start telling them about all the training programs that you have, and you should. If you don't, we'll talk about that later. But what you really need to start showing people is that you matter to the community, you're here to stay, and you offer great benefits. All right. And more so, the next generation doesn't necessarily care too much about salary. I know that some will disagree with me there, but they want to know what kind of training program they have. They want to know what their progression path is going to be. And I will tell you, after looking from class ones to short lines, we are not good as an industry showing that progression path. Put it on your job descriptions. I almost cursed, so I hope, sorry. One of them pops out. I'm really sorry.
No, it's okay.
Put it on your job description. Say you could start here as a track laborer, and if you're successful and you master these skills, here's 8 different directions that you could go. So, again, it starts with being open-minded, but then it's knowing, liking, and trusting, building that KLT philosophy, and being an entity that your community knows, likes, and trusts.
So if we flip the script just a little bit, I like your know, like, trust commentary here. You also briefly touched on this generation. Let's focus a little bit on the generation that's not my father's generation. So, my dad got out of school and started working in probably 69 or 70, I want to say. I am guessing his wants and needs when he was looking for a position were different than per se someone who literally just graduated this spring. What do employers need to know about this new generation, this say 22 to 30-year-old generation that is different than, say, what I know as a 42-year-old?
Right. They don't want your grandfather's railroad. I'll tell you that right now. They don't want to know that at all. What we have been very successful at, and you see the class one's doing this very successfully, is talking about their sustainability. They want to see the path to greener services, and we all know, if we're in the industry, how great we are for the environment, how many trucks we take off the road, how many gallons per one. Our locomotives are way more energy efficient than trucking would be, right? So that's a whole other lobbying conversation that we can have. But we know the effects of how beneficial we are for our environment. So one of the things I will say is continue to highlight how great we are and how great our industry is for the overall use of lowering greenhouse gases, things like that. Showcase some of the technology that we're using. Showing the next generation again that we're doing everything we can to not necessarily autonomize anything, but to bring things into computers, to bring things to digital world instead of levers and filling things manually and things like that, right? So sustainability is a big one. Technology is another one. These are things to highlight. I can't stress this enough, but training. Again, we're probably not going to be getting a lot of railroad knowledgeable folks for those entry-level positions in the future. And you still might, and you might need that, and that's okay too. But if we are open-minded enough and we have good training programs, we can take somebody with 0 railroad experience and get them caught up and trained in a way that they want to stay there. So building mentorship programs, having someone that's going to, be that person's coach throughout the way, be who my dad was for me or who I'm being for others kind of coming up in the industry, checking in on them, doing those kind of things. So highlight your training, your training aspects, highlight that you have a mentorship program. Even as simple as, ads, make sure you put women in there, make sure you put people of diversity in there, right? I mean, just put them in your, and I hope it's true for the makeup of your company as well. I hope you're, trying to be more diverse, because that leads to better results and bottom lines in the end. But, different perspectives and things like that. But just your basic materials and things that you're promoting with, do your best to show that people like me are working there. That's a huge draw as well. And besides that, I want to know, as the next generation, again, just putting myself in that candidate shoes, who's going to be graduating next year. Tell me what charities you're giving to. Tell me what 5Ks you run. CP does a great job at this. They show all the different veteran, and the Red Cross, they do a big charity for every year. So, there are things that you can highlight that show that you're giving back, and you're more than just a company. You're more than just, my grandfather's old railroad. You are actually giving, and you want to be a part of this community. And there's a bunch of different ways for you to be involved, and give back to your local communities, and also national communities as well.
You hit on a great word there, mentorship. And given that this is the ARIMA podcast, I think that one thing at ARIMA we pride ourselves in is providing a platform for mentorship. So, a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast, they might not even be hiring right now, but you know what? They might have a very strong desire to provide mentorship to that younger generation. We try to do our best through our committees and giving people the ability to, well, frankly, to take a lead role in technical committees. But to me, it's more than that. Do you feel that ARIMA, ASLRA, Alphabet Soup, you come up with whatever you want, are they doing a good job of showing those opportunities to this generation that, hey, this is where you go learn from? And listen, anything you say, don't feel like you're going to offend me or ARIMA, because we want to get better at this. So what is your take on that right now? Do people even know who we are?
That's a great question, and I'll play the political angle of this. I think there's always room for improvement for any association. One of them being, if you flip that script a little bit and say, if I'm a student, how do you know about ARIMA? Maybe it's word of mouth. Maybe you do have a student chapter, which is excellent. But do you have a student membership rate? Do you have do you have somebody within that association that goes and not necessarily recruits, but goes and shares about the opportunities within your association? I'm not talking about jobs. I'm just saying about general membership recruitment. Because a lot of ways you think about sales and you think about recruiting, they have a lot of the same philosophies, right? You'll meet with your customers to tell them why they should, like your services. The same thing with recruiting. You go out to your audiences and you tell them why they should be a part of your organization. And I think associations can do a better job at, whether it's partnering with different colleges. And here's the thing, I love that there are railroad specific colleges out there. I love that there's curriculum now for railroads to get people more absorbed to our culture and our industry. But that's not the only colleges and campuses out there. No matter what college or campus is near you, go to them, talk to them. They do not have to be railroad specific. I will show you that I could take a business administrative person that's graduating from a management class and put them into as a train master. Half the stuff you do as a trade master is talking to others, customer relations, conflict resolution. These are just skills that can transfer from that degree over here. So don't be barred that, oh, well, I can't make it to Penn State to go recruit here. Or, oh, I can't go to the Michigan. I can't go to Wisconsin to go to that one. Don't be closed-minded. Don't be so myopic to say that these are the only schools that we can recruit from, because it's not. You have to be open-minded enough to say, and secure enough to say that, hey, I have a good training program for you, but we can take a chance at another college or area to say, hey, look at our opportunities, and again, become that known entity there. But going back to our associations, what I would love to see is there be student rates, to have somebody dedicated, even if it's just one college or one tech school or one veteran base, whatever the case may be, to have a representative there at those career fairs and just say, hey, join our association. We have 30% off. It's $30 to be a part of ARIMA, or ASLRA, or whatever the case may be. Come to our annuals, network with employers. This is the way you're going to get into the industry. And quite frankly, I have never seen that in that space. I've never seen an association come to any of the spaces I was, and hey, you could have, and I missed you, or we were at different events, which is great. But we really need to reach out to these communities to show them that we are here to stand. But we as the associations are a great place to start. We have all the employers with us. They showcase every year at our annuals. What a better way to get an intern, right? And then the other side of it too is, and I know there's scholarships, and that's great. And I think that's a great opportunity for people to get to know different associations. I know the League of Railway Women, in which I'm a board member of, we do a scholarship. Every year we do two. I think we might be bumping it up to a couple more. And the folks that run that are great. And it's the same thing that, and I'm pretty sure there's other associations that do multiple other scholarships. But again, how are they talking to students? How are they getting those scholarships? Unless it's a mom or a dad of a railroader, right? If that's our audience, that's great. I mean, we're getting applicants, which is cool. But on the same hand, we're not impacting the folks that have no clue who we are. So if we're only giving money back into our the people that already know us, it's kind of like preaching to the choir a little bit. And so I would dare to challenge the different associations to say, how can we get that scholarship money to folks that we've never showcased to before, or that we've never connected to before? And it could be as simple as emailing the career resource center of a local community college or whatever the case may be, and just saying, hey, we have this great opportunity. Please list us in the resources you have for funding opportunities for this school or this Alfred or Women's Center, or whatever the case may be.
Outstanding. I understand. It's not an easy answer, right? And one thing as we've been talking here for however long, I have heard you say grandfather's railroad, and I've heard you say, we used to be the kings, et cetera, and now we're up against everyone else is with us. Looking at the clock that you see running in 60 seconds or less, do you think the industry has an identity issue?
That's a great question. I would say yes and no, because the people that know us for certain reasons, and there's multiple different reasons. So I guess it depends on your background to flip that in on a different lens. For those that don't know anything about us, I'd say we're failing there. We are in an identity crisis, and that's why we need to reinvent ourselves and build our brands better.
Yeah, I actually agree with you completely. Every time I go out, like I'm sitting here thinking about it. I'm going to a Rockies game tonight, and going out with a couple guys that I don't know, and you sit there in the stands and you're drinking your beer and chatting about what you do. And every time I tell people what I do, they're just like, "You do what?
Yep.
There's still trains," and they joke about it, right? Like they laugh it off. But the reality is that is, I think, the general public, just because it's such a B2B business. It's not only B2B, it's B2B behind, at the tip of the iceberg, where we're hauling, things that the general public will never touch. It makes it difficult to explain how important it is with what we do. We had a massive amount of downloads on our podcast about the Hyperloop. People are excited about tech. The Hyperloop is interesting too, because it's in essence, it's a railroad in a tube. So it's the interest is there. It's just I wouldn't say struggle with, but I always find it interesting to get people excited about what we do. Now, don't get me wrong. By the end of the game, I'll have these guys excited about what it is I do and what it is we do. But yes, I think that sometimes, in 1976, if I went to a game, Rockies didn't exist, so I guess let's go to the Yankees Stadium. They'd say, "Wow, yeah, absolutely. I know exactly. I know what it is. My grandfather probably worked for the railroad. My dad rode the railroad." Like, so the connection is slowly getting lost, right? And I feel like that sometimes is difficult. It has to be somewhat difficult for someone like you going out and talking with young people and saying, "No, really, you need to go work for Norfolk Southern.
Yeah, no,
You need to go. You need to make an appointment with Ed Sparks at CSX and listen to what he has to say." Am I wrong?
No, that's the funnest part, honestly, is like seeing people's reaction, be like, So not Amtrak, and then you explain like this whole other world. It's like unveiling something there. The white of their eyes just gets bigger and bigger. And literally, my opening line is usually, "Hey, you want to talk about trains?" And people are like, "What?" Like, yeah, come here. Let me show you. I'll bring a model. I'll show them this is an engine and this is a car, and you can do the marketing for this company, or you can be, a tech person over here. And then all of a sudden, it's a conversation. But something, those fun facts that we have about sustainability and how great and green, the rail industry really is for overall, greener solutions and things like that. The same thing holds true with how strong we impact the economy. And I think that's something that everybody can relate to too. And one thing I say is, when you're sitting at a crossing next time, count how many cars there are. If you have over 100-car train, that's going to tell you the strength of our economy right now. If you see a short train, maybe you just got like a little connector or a little switcher going on, but chances are you're going to see a pretty long train. And if that train is long and you're there for a couple of minutes, well, it's just this nice showing of how strong our economy is doing and what we're doing to bolster that strength for our nation.
Yeah, absolutely. Railcar counts, like you're talking about, at a very high level, are very much an indicator of what's going on with the nation's GDP. I'm going to end this with the final question, because I know this could go on for quite some time, but I also know that this is a Friday afternoon. This is a happy hour podcast that we've been recording. No drinking has been involved in the making of this podcast. But Michele, let's just wrap this up by telling our listeners what is your outlook on the next 10 years in the industry? Positive, negative, neutral? You seem like a very optimistic person, but in your own words, what would you say your outlook is on our industry?
Well, I would say that we have a very strong future ahead of us. We need the help of our next generation, though. So the way we are driven for the future is going to depend on how we bring in this next generation. We need to excite them. We need to show them the way. We can't hold on to our egos and everything that we know like this. We have to relinquish a little bit of that knowledge. We have to build those mentorship programs. We have to cultivate them. We have to cultivate that interest once again. So as long as we have the strength in our workplaces and that passion and that, how it kind of worked for me, gets in your blood, if we can continue to make that a reality, I think we're going to be looking in pretty good shape. Again, we have gone through recessions. Railroads are still here. How many other industries can you look at that says we've been around for 100 years or more? Not many. We're not going away anytime soon. The only thing that we are going to do is get stronger. And some of us might get bigger. There's going to be more opportunities as we start looking at, the different liquefied gas and petroleum gas and all that good stuff. There's plenty of room for opportunity, especially with technology, as automation starts to become a situation for some companies. So there's just so much room for growth, and that growth is exactly what we need to be sharing with that next generation. It's exactly what we need to be communicating to that audience. And as long as we can continue to inspire and get those people excited about our industry, which again, we're not doing a great job at right now, but if we can do that next 10, 20 years, we're not going to have any problem whatsoever. In fact, I think we will once again come back as a king employer, and we will have a rail renaissance. And I think that's kind of what we're on the cusp of right now.
Awesome. I don't want to have to follow that. So I am not going to follow that. I'm going to say that is a great way to end this podcast. I want to thank you for coming on this afternoon. I also want to thank you for being flexible with my schedule. This has been a rough week. And I want all of our listeners, I hope you enjoyed this one. It was kind of fun to talk about the industry at large and just kind of address some of the things that we're all seeing out there as employers, employees, and people that frankly have a vested interest in making this industry great.
Well,
go ahead.
I just want to say one more thing. If this is going to reach students, if this is going to reach other candidates like that, and I hope it will, and I know it will, make sure you are a part of ARIMA. It's a great organization. They're one of the groups that actually has a student chapter. So that's pretty amazing. Not a lot of other associations take that dedication and commitment to their student side. So if you can, join ARIMA, and if you need to know how to do that, I'm sure Walt or I or anybody within our companies would be more than happy to guide you or take you under our wing at some of the different expo halls and annuals that this group has. So make sure you get involved with ARIMA.
Perfect. All right, Michele, thank you.
Thank you for rolling with ARIMA on today's episode of Platform Chats. For further information about ARIMA, please visit arema.org or contact us at info@arema.org.